And in order to navigate through this, what you can do is you can middle mouse button down. So it does rely on the middle mouse quite a bit. So you can if you press middle mouse down and you drag it over, you can rotate. Or you know what? If you're not used to this, at the beginning you can rely on this rotation widget. All you have to do is click on this and drag, and you can see it'll rotate wherever according to the axis. It even has a very nice picture of the XYZ axis, so you know how you're rotating, in which direction. Now, in order to zoom in and out, they have these very helpful icons here. So the magnifying glass is obviously zooming in and out. If you click on it, click and drag this icon here. Left is zoom out. Drag. Oh, sorry. Up is zoom in. Down is zoom out. So just click on this icon and drag. Panning, they have this nice and handy hand icon. So just click and drag wherever you want to pan. This camera is to toggle between your active camera view. In Blender, like any other 3D software, you can have multiple cameras in the scene, and this button will toggle between the only active camera view and the normal navigation view. Then you can see what the active camera sees. To select objects in Blender, it's super easy. All you have to do is left click on the object that you want to select. So if I want to select the cube, this is the default cube that you get when you start up Blender. Left click the cube in the 3D viewport, and you'll see this orange highlight that is outlining this cube. That means this cube is selected. And if I wanted to select the camera, just left click and select the camera. And you'll see that the camera is outlined in orange. Now, if I wanted to deselect everything in the 3D viewport, just click anywhere off on the 3D viewport that doesn't have any objects on it. So I'm just going to click this blank space right here, and everything is deselected. You can also select objects in the outliner over here, where it lists all the objects in this current scene. So the camera, and you'll see that the camera gets outlined in orange. If I want to select the cube, just left click it in the outliner here, or even the light. So this is incredibly useful if you have a lot of objects in the scene and you can't find what you want. You can always come over to the outliner. There's a search bar here, and you just type cube, and it will filter out all the objects in your scene that starts with the text that you type in. So then you can select it easily here. If I want the camera, and then I can easily left click it in the outliner. There you go. So let's click the cube and press delete. Next, I'll show you how I set up my screens when I start shading my scene. Here I have a volume object that I imported into Blender, and I created a default volume material for it. The objective of this is to demonstrate screen splitting in Blender, and if you're interested in how I imported the volume object or how I created the volume, please check out these other videos on my Houdini channel. Now, one of the awesome things about Blender is that you can split the screen very easily. If you come over here to the top right hand corner of this active panel, just click and drag it down. It splits just like that. Then you can come up here, and that's how we change our editor. This right here. So I'm going to go back to 3D viewport because I want to see the volume on the top and then set up the material on the bottom. Now, if you don't like this kind of setup, like how I have the screen split up and down, you can set it up any way you want. So you might be wondering, well, how do I collapse this window? That is probably one of the most asked questions in Blender. Come over here to this panel. It doesn't have to be this panel. It can be that panel as well, but I want to collapse this panel. I want to take this panel and collapse it up. So it takes, the top panel will disappear. So come over to the bottom panel over here, left click, drag it up. You can see the arrow, it will collapse up, or it can collapse down. If you have it going down, that means the top panel will overwrite the bottom, and we won't see our material editor anymore. but we can always split it again. So I'm going to split it left to right. So let's click this right hand top corner again, and this time we're going to drag it to the left. So click and drag. We can split it like this. So if this is what you're happy with, you can have it set up like this. So we can choose the editor type here. So you can choose shader editor here. Now in order to collapse it, you do the same thing again. You come over here to the right hand corner of the panel that you want to collapse. Click it, drag it to the right, and you'll see this arrow wherever you want to collapse. So I'm going to split it the way I like it. This is usually how I have it set up. So you can always resize it too if you click and drag this. Okay, in order to navigate in the shader editor, it's actually the same thing as the viewport. Middle mouse, click and drag in order to pan. And in order to zoom in and out, you just use the mouse wheel. If you ever want to delete this material, you can select your smoke object, come down here to the material tab. You can rename this. Just double click. Now, all you have to do is just double click smoke. And if you don't like this, you want to start it all over. If you want to start all over and create a new version of the material without losing the current version you have, just press the minus sign. It's still there, don't worry. Come down here, there's a drop down. Your smoke is right here. There is something you need to know about Houdini. If you do unassign this material, like if this material is not assigned to anything, that's why there's a 0 here. Once it's assigned to something, the 0 goes away. That is telling you Blender has this cleanup functionality. If the material is not being used, it will get deleted on when you close Blender. So if I click this and I go and save and then close Blender, the next time I open this Blender file, this will not be here anymore. So if you want to keep it in the Blender file at the same time, but you don't want it to be assigned to anything, all you have to do is click the shield. This will ensure that it will always be saved with the Blender file. So even if you unassign it, so this smoke material is not being used. That's why there's an F here. It's telling you it will still be saved. It's linked to this Blender file. What I like to do, because I don't see what the camera sees right now. Like I don't see that. What I like to do is I like to drag it down here in this panel. Yes, you can split this as well. I love this panel splitting. It's very handy. Come here and choose the 3D viewport. Now, I'd like to see what the camera sees in this small little corner here. So I'm gonna toggle the camera view, and then you can zoom in. Now I need to change this to render mode, but as you can see, this panel is very tiny. I don't see these icons here anymore. So you can come here, put your mouse over here, and just scroll the mouse wheel, just like when you're reading a web page. You're just scrolling down. Then you'll see the icons here. Choose the render mode. So you can have, this is what the camera sees. So this is very handy. This is what the camera sees right here. So you can play around with whatever you have here, and you can still check to see if it looks good on camera.